Pacific Ocean, 1974. The middle of the night. A massive ship sits almost motionless in the open ocean. No land in sight. No other vessels, just water, darkness, and a Soviet surveillance ship a few miles off the bow. The Soviet officer on deck raises his binoculars and stares. He's trying to figure out what he's looking at. He can't, because everything about this moment was designed so he wouldn't. 5,000 meters below that ship, something was happening that had never been attempted in recorded history. The CIA would never officially confirm it. The Soviets wouldn't understand what had happened until it was far too late. This is the story of Project Azorian. Welcome to the Veiled One. In early 1968, the Cold War had reached one of its most sustained periods of tension. Both superpowers were competing across every possible front: nuclear stockpiles, espionage, maritime control, technology. Any advantage, however small, could shift the balance. The Soviet Navy's Gulf II-class submarines were a key part of that balance. Each one carried 3 R-21 ballistic missiles. Each missile had a nuclear warhead. Each warhead could level a city. February 24th, 1968. The submarine K-129 departed Kamchatka on a routine patrol. 98 crew members, an experienced commander, Captain Vladimir Kobzar. A normal departure. But in early March, K-129 missed its scheduled radio check-in. One missed check-in you can explain away. The second one triggered an internal panic inside the Soviet Navy. Ships, aircraft, submarines, everything was mobilized. Weeks of searching across a vast, dark stretch of ocean. Nothing. Just a small slick of diesel fuel on the surface. K-129. And all 98 men aboard had vanished. But there was something the Soviets didn't know. The U.S. Navy had placed acoustic sensors across the ocean floor, a network called SOSUS, designed to track Soviet submarines. On March 8th, those sensors picked up 2 distinct underwater detonations. The signals gave rough coordinates. The USS Halibut was sent in. It carried a towed deep-sea camera system, nicknamed the Fish, capable of operating at over 6,000 meters depth. A few weeks later, the wreck of K-129 was located, 5,000 meters down, broken, silent. Over 9,000 photographs were taken. The CIA combined them and built a scale model of the wreck on the ocean floor. And in those photographs, analysts noticed something. The third missile silo's hatch was closed, locked. There was very likely a nuclear missile still inside. Add to that, encrypted communication devices, classified documents, launch codes. No one had ever raised a 3,000-ton object from 5,000 meters. Not once. Not anywhere. It didn't stop them. President Nixon approved the operation in 1969. The CIA took control. Codename Project Azorian. The first problem was who could do it. The Navy would draw too much attention. They needed a civilian company. Someone tight-lipped. Someone no one would question when they started doing something deeply strange in the middle of the Pacific. The answer was Howard Hughes. Hughes was already known for bizarre projects and quiet government contracts. His company wasn't publicly traded, no obligation to explain anything to anyone. The cover story wrote itself. Hughes was building a research vessel to extract manganese nodules from the ocean floor for an eccentric billionaire. It almost made sense. The Glomar Explorer was born. Construction started in 1972 at a shipyard near Philadelphia, nearly 190 meters long, built around a secret internal bay called the Moon Pool, a chamber that opened directly to the sea at the waterline, invisible from outside. In today's money, the ship cost over $2 billion. A capture device called Clementine was engineered from scratch, a colossal mechanical claw designed to grip a section of K-129 and lift it intact into the Moon Pool. The engineering was, by any measure, insane. Nothing like it had ever existed. July 4th, 1974. American Independence Day. The Glomar Explorer arrived on station above the wreck site. The Soviets were watching. First came the Chazma, a ship designed to monitor Soviet missile test launches with a helicopter deck. That helicopter deck scared the crew more than anything else. A few days later, the Chazma left. Then SB-10 arrived, a Soviet ocean-going tug. And it didn't leave. It shadowed the Glomar Explorer for nearly the entire operation, sometimes closing to within 15 meters. One day, the CIA radio officer heard a Russian-accented voice crackle through the receiver. "Unidentified vessel. Please identify yourself and state your intentions." A moment of silence on the bridge. "Soviet warship. This is Glomar Explorer. We are conducting deep-sea mining experiments." "Soviet warship. This is Glomar Explorer. We are conducting deep..." The SB-10's captain was suspicious, but there wasn't much he could do to a commercial vessel in international waters. He watched from a distance. And inside the Moon Pool, invisible to everyone outside, Clementine was slowly descending toward 5,000 meters. After weeks of precise, painstaking work, Clementine reached K-129 and closed its grip around the bow section. The slow ascent began, meter by meter, pipe section by pipe section, tense, exhausting, almost meditative in its slowness. And then, near the surface, the sensors spiked. Abnormal load distribution. Something was wrong. Several of Clementine's claws fractured. High-strength steel, but not enough ductility under that kind of sustained weight and movement. Within minutes, roughly 2/3 of the raised section broke away and fell back into the darkness. The nuclear missiles, the cipher devices, almost everything the CIA had come for. What made it into the Moon Pool was a 12-meter section of the bow. Inside, 2 nuclear torpedoes in poor condition, some documents, a camera with a partially intact film roll, and the remains of 6 Soviet sailors. The CIA conducted a full military burial at sea. The Soviet anthem was played. Everything was recorded on film. Decades later, that footage was handed to the Russian government. So, only 12 meters. A partial failure. That's the official story. But here's what I keep coming back to. This was an intelligence agency that successfully hid a $2 billion ship in the middle of the ocean, ran a deep-sea salvage operation under Soviet surveillance, and kept it secret for years. And we're expected to take their word for exactly how much they recovered. An intelligence agency. During the Cold War, operating in total secrecy. That requires a certain level of optimism. Engineers involved in the operation gave interviews years later. Some implied that sonar equipment, navigation instruments, and mechanical components were recovered and analyzed off the books, not in any official report. The CIA's own internal assessment from 1985, partially declassified in 2010, describes the operation as yielding strategically significant intelligence. It doesn't specify what. It simply says strategically significant. In intelligence language, that usually means we learned something valuable, and you're not allowed to know what it was. And then there's this. After the Glomar Explorer returned, a second operation was already being planned. Project Matador. The goal was to go back and recover the rest of K-129, the parts that supposedly fell. It was canceled only because leaked documents reached the press. If the first operation was really such a failure, why was a second one planned almost immediately? Governments don't throw billions at failures. They bury them. I'm not claiming they lied. I'm just saying intelligence agencies rarely publish their full shopping list, and that's a question worth sitting with. In March 1975, the New York Times broke the story. The CIA found itself buried in Freedom of Information requests. Journalists wanted to know, did the U.S. actually raise a Soviet submarine? Was the Glomar Explorer used again? The CIA's written response became one of the most famous sentences in intelligence history. We can neither confirm nor deny the existence of such information. The Glomar response. It's still used by government agencies today. The Glomar Explorer itself had a quieter ending. Sold in 1978. Converted into a drilling ship in 1996 for over $300 million. Sold again in 2010 to Transocean for $20 million. Scrapped in China in 2015. A ship that once cost the equivalent of over $2 billion, sold for the price of a mid-sized apartment building, then cut apart. The families of K-129's 98 crew members spent years fighting just to have their loved ones officially recognized as having died in the line of duty, not simply declared dead. The paperwork said, presumed deceased. That single word cost widows their pensions, their benefits, their children's support. It took years to fix. Some of them didn't live to see it. And somewhere out on the floor of the Pacific, the rest of K-129 is still there. The missiles, the documents, the things we never recovered, or never admitted to recovering. I don't know what's down there anymore. I'm not sure anyone does. I'm the Veiled One. I'll be diving into the next one soon. But before I do, what do you think is still down there?